With us right now, Chris Tidball. Chris, you are the head of global sales with Second Look. You're found on the web at secondlook.net. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And so tell us, what does Second Look do?
So we are a full service subrogation firm, and most of your listeners may not know what that is, but it's a simple act of collecting money on behalf of insurance companies for which they're owed by people that are at fault for things like accidents.
Yeah. Well, how do you get the money for them in a way that they can't do it themselves?
Well, they can't do it themselves. A lot of them aren't very good at it, and a lot of them are super busy. So you would be very surprised at the number of claims that have ramped up since we've gotten out of the pandemic. What happened last year was COVID hit and claim counts went down and people were displaced and moved into other operations. And then all of a sudden claims counts came roaring back. Accidents are happening. And so we really augment their staff. So certainly they can do it themselves. My personal view is that we do it better just because how we do it is somewhat unique in the industry. But that's really, how we got started.
Yeah. So obviously that's my question. Then it's like, how did you find yourself doing this? How did you know there was a need? And how did you, at what point did you and anybody else with the company say, yeah, we can, this is a problem we can fix?
So I started out in insurance claims many, many moons ago, back in the 90s, and kind of started as a claims adjuster with Progressive Insurance, kind of worked my way up through the ranks, moved over to a large global carrier called AIG that people have probably heard of. And, at some point during my career there, I was really put in charge of subrogation results. So we weren't doing very well at it. We had some challenges, some internal, some external. And so I kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and said, you know what, we're really not that good at it, but let's get good at it. And so we implemented all kinds of process changes and saw some really good results, implemented some technology, some algorithms, some AI, and, results kept moving in the right direction. And, going to a company like Second Look really is just, hey, the industry has challenges. I mean, it's an area that's often overlooked. And I think it's an area that's often overlooked because it's really not well understood. It can be very complex. When I share examples of, car A hits car B and car B has a subrogation right against car A, that's pretty simple. But what happens if the driver of car A is different than the owner and the vehicle's owned by a company, but the owner of the company's in China? I mean, it gets very complicated. Yeah.
So share with us like who you typically are working with, like how you engage with them. You and I were kind of talking, your next call is with a very, very, very large company that has a lot of trucks and everyone would know who they are.
Right. So my typical engagement is I reach out to a decision maker, try to identify it. I've got a big presence on LinkedIn. I'm just starting up a YouTube channel and just try to find the decision maker within the organization, typically a head of claims, a chief financial officer, a CEO, a vice president of claims, and lay out to them what the problem is, how I see it, how we can help, and then try to get in the door. And our typical way in the door is we bet that companies are closing claims with missed subrogation. And it's estimated in the industry that about 15% of all claims are closed with missed subrogation at a cost to the industry of about $15 billion a year.
So again, so it's money not getting where it was supposed to get, essentially, right?
Right. And so we hang our hat on, we will come into your company at no charge and we will find you money. And sometimes a lot of money. A recent example, large, again, household name insurance company, we went in behind both their adjuster and their existing subrogation vendor, and we found over $2 million that both had missed.
Wow. Yeah. So give me some examples of companies that should be working with someone that can handle their subrogation.
So all insurance companies will have some type of subrogation process.
Mhm.
Larger companies will typically do it in-house. And they do, when it comes to things like car crashes, they do a pretty good job. When it comes to more complex claims, property, cargo, general liability, workers' compensation, that's where you start to see a lot of gaps, and that's where we can help out. With your smaller companies, it just becomes really a price point. I mean, we can do things better, faster, and cheaper than a lot of companies can do. We also work with a lot of self-insureds. So one of our key areas is nursing homes.
Mm.
And you wouldn't think that there'd be a lot of claims there, but there are many claims. There's a lot of subrogation. Contractor comes in, breaks something. Well, now we've got to go after the contractor for the money. Oftentimes, companies will use attorneys who are they do a great job, but they're very expensive.
Mhm.
And there certainly is a need for attorneys in some more complex situations, but we kind of fit that middle ground. So you don't have an overly complex situation. You don't have the staff to handle it. You don't want to pay an attorney fee to go get it. So we kind of come in and we actually partner with a lot of attorneys in this area.
Yeah. So Chris, how did you align with Second Look? So there's a founder of the company, and you've kind of come in and explain that relationship.
Sure. It's real easy. When I was running the subrogation operations over at AIG, I had Second Look come in and do a closed file audit, and they found me a ton of money. And I went to my boss, and that money actually became the foundation for a lot of projects that we had moving forward.
So the kind of the USP here is that Second Look is doing things quite a bit more intelligently, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everybody's gone down the road of we have advanced analytics, we've got AI, we've got machine learning, and they've forgotten that the human component is actually pretty important still when it comes to complex subrogation scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So we've deployed all of the analytics and the AI and the machine learning, but it only gets you about 80% of the way there. So what we've done is we've modeled over 600 years of collective claims experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going in to find that other 20% that other people aren't finding.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So who would make a really great introduction for you? Who should be paying attention here and say, I need to talk to Chris?
Well, any of your big insurance companies, we do business with a lot of them. We love to do business with all of them. But, when you think of the insurance companies you see on TV, the Liberties, the Geicos, the State Farms, the Progressives, those are all wonderful clients. Moving into that middle tier. So there's a lot of mid-tier clients, especially down here in Florida, there's a lot of property insurers only. So like your Heritages of the world that are big in Florida, but they have they don't really have a footprint outside the state. They're focused only on property. And that's, one of our niches that we're very good at. And we're really pushing into the world of brokers and self-insureds because these self-insureds often have very large retentions. Sometimes they don't have the infrastructure to go get that. Sometimes they're using TPAs that don't necessarily, do the best job at times. Mm-hmm. And we think we can go in and we can provide that bridge to allow the TPAs to really focus on what they're good at and let us focus on what we're good at. And at the end of the day, they ultimately get better results.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of like what kind of fleet should they have? What kind of usage? Like how do they know that they're kind of in that right size and usage case, that sort of thing?
So typically we will go in and we can help anybody. It's really understanding that you have challenges in the subrogation world. So some people we handle it in-house, we do just fine, which is fine. Many people do. Our best in the door approach is to let us look at your book. Let us look at 3 years of closed claims and let us see what's missing. You might be surprised. So kind of our tagline is, dare to take a second look, because, that takes somebody saying, yeah, you know what, we might be leaving money on the table. And nobody wants to admit that. I don't know why, but it's it's something that I come across frequently, that if I let you in to look at my closed files, that might expose me for leaving money on the table. And that's not at all the case. I mean, everybody's busier and staffing models are changing and people are doing more with less. You're going to miss stuff. It's just the nature of the beast. And we want to be your business partner to help you find that.
Yeah. You've, Chris, not only are you, kind of working in the industry, but you've actually produced a lot of content around this. You've written books on this. You've actually written a lot of books, in fact.
I've written, I think, 5. When I left, my first book was called Readjusted. And when I left the industry side to move over to the vendor side, I really needed to establish myself as an expert in the field of insurance. So my first book was Readjusted, and it's really how do you take your insurance organization from ordinary to extraordinary. And there's key steps, and it's really not that difficult. It's just some of the fundamental steps get overlooked. And since then, I've gone down the road. I've written some fiction books. My latest is a thriller. It's called Deep State. It's about an insurance adjuster that gets involved in all kinds of bad stuff. It's based in part in truth. You have a lot of experiences over the years. I tell people that insurance claims is not khakis and she sheds. There's a lot more to it than that. So, we dive into that, and we've had some, recent activity from Hollywood taking an interest in perhaps turning these books into a series called The Adjuster.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Chris Tidball, your personal website is christidball.com. And then, of course, Second Look is found on the web at secondlook.net. Someone that's been listening to us and they're like, well, yeah, we've been dealing with claims in the past. I suspect that there's money that's not where it's supposed to get. What would be the kind of that next step? Like how would they, that next step of engagement with you?
It's really just a call or an email, and, let us come in. We won't charge you a nickel to take a look at what you've got. I mean, it's no harm, no foul. Our bet is we're the house, and we will find money because we always do. But you know what? We might not. And that's a risk we're willing to take. And, the clients that we have are very pleased with the results that we've been giving them.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. SecondLook.net and, of course, christidball.com. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you.